Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to another episode of our tutorial for Hearts of Iron 4 for complete beginners. At this point, we've looked through most of the menu. We got a couple of things that are outstanding. We haven't really looked at the politics or the decisions. There's also this logistics screen over here, which we're going to talk about a bit more when we look at, hey, how do we actually design our divisions? But this episode, we're going to start by focusing on actually moving our troops around, which is something we've been talking about because it's going to deal with our very final little notice over here at the top, the unassigned divisions warning. So this is letting us know we have some divisions that are not in any kind of armies or anything like that. So divisions are the organizational sort of unit that we use for the units on the map. They are made up of brigades, I think is the word. Battalions? One of those. I don't do military, but the division level is what we operate on the map. So we can zoom in, we can take a look at them, and we get little information. So over here in Tula, for example, we have 3 divisions of infantry. Here in Moscow, we've got 1 motorized divisions, 4 divisions of infantry, and 2 tank divisions over here. And again, we will look at some point as to what exactly that means. What is a tank division and what does it encompass and how do we generate the equipment for it? But right now we're going to move things around. So what do we do with these dudes that are currently unassigned? We're going to want them to sit around the borders of our potential enemies, maybe people we worry that are going to attack us or people we'd like to attack. We might also have some on garrison duties to guard our, so maybe our naval facilities on the coast so they can't be taken by an enemy, for example. So what we want to do first is we want to grab some amount of dudes and make an army. So let's say we've got 4 divisions up here, 3 infantry and 1 cavalry division. I'm going to go ahead and select them all. I'm just going to draw a box around them. So I've got them selected over here, and I'm going to make them into an army. And that's what these displays down at the bottom. So anytime you are, anytime you're basically on the default map mode, the land map mode, these buttons will be visible. If you happen to be on the naval or air mode, these things will look a little bit different sometimes, but let's make sure we're on the land map mode over here, which is F1. F1 through to F9 will access a variety of different map modes, and we'll probably take a look at those in a future video. But for now, we're just going to set on F1, which is our default ground combat map mode. So I'm going to select these 4, and I'm going to make them into an army by simply clicking on the plus over here. So these guys are now in an army. You'll notice over on the right-hand side, we have an outliner. I mean, there's always, whatever I'm clicking on, it's going to tell me like what that is over here for my selection, but it's got the actual outliner here with our theaters established. So a theater is just a way of grouping troops together. Technically, there is one in-game effect from the existence of a theater, and that is to say you can go into the settings and prioritize a theater to have high priority for reinforcements, low priority, or normal priority. But generally speaking, theaters have no true in-game mechanic. It's just a way of naming things. So for example, let's have this be the Finnish, would it be 2 N's? I think so, Finnish front, like that, right? The Finnish front, because we're next to Finland over here. So we currently have 1 army in here, and it's still waiting for orders. These exclamation marks, the division belongs to an army but has no orders assigned. So we're going to tell these guys that their job is to defend the border against Finland, or more accurately, prepare for an invasion of Finland. So when we have an army selected, we have a battle plans little panel that comes out, and it's got a variety of buttons. Starting on the left, you've got the ability to start exercising. If I go ahead and hit this, our troops are now going to start exercising. We'll actually see them go ahead and do push-ups and jumping jacks and, practice aiming their guns and doing different things like this. While they're exercising, what's going to happen is they're going to generate army experience for us, which is something we'll look at how we can spend that later on. In addition to that, they will develop their own experience. So they have a current experience level of 2. They are trained, and they can build up and earn more experience by fighting as well as training. Is he looking at his own gun? Or no, he's just doing little parade maneuvers. That's fine. And they can rank up. Now, when doing the training, I think I have to stop this to get the other tooltip back. There we go. Stop. You see, start exercising. The units will consume equipment. So while they're training, you'll actually get a little skull on the unit thing. That means the skull represents a certain amount of attrition affecting the unit, which means they are losing equipment and using up supplies for some reason. Sometimes that can mean they're in an area which is really poor supply. Like if there's bad infrastructure, we can't get enough supplies to the front, the units will suffer attrition. But it also happens when you're exercising. You're burning up some of the bullets, maybe, you know, some of the guns and boots break or something like that, so they have to be replaced. So units suffer a little bit of attrition while exercising. But they will gain experience, and you will also generate army experience. From each unit whose experience level is at least 2-trained. There is a limit to how much you can exercise them in terms of scaling up. I think they can go all the way up to level 3, which is regular, at which point they can't gain more experience themselves from this, although they'll still generate army experience over here. So that's one button. The next button is how we execute battle plans. We'll talk about that later. We've got a button for naval invasions and paratroop invasions, which will be a later topic. But now we get to a really important one, front line. So if we click this button, and then we click any border with another country, for example, the border here with Finland, what I can do is I can right click and drag, but if I just click, just left click, boop, this puts this little hatch symbol over here. This is a front line with Finland, and it'll automatically go all the way to here, or if there was some sort of break for some reason, it would do that. But now we've got a front line all along the border with Finland. If we weren't happy with this, I could hit the delete orders button and then click on this, so it would remove this order. I could click on front line again, and if I right click and drag, I can create a partial front line, so only from here to here. If I want, I can hold Alt, which will show up these borders, and I can hold down the right mouse button and drag it to adjust these borders. So we can go ahead and make this longer, or we can make this shorter, all that we want. I can also right click on the delete orders button to delete all orders for this army. So front line, click, there you go. So we've got a front line with Finland. So right now we've only got 4 units assigned to it, but if we go ahead and unpause, these units, you see, they will move over. I mean, 3 of them were already sort of in position. They will move over to meet this border. This is a pretty long border. We kind of need more units to make this work. So how do we get more units into this army, right? We've got this sort of teal army over here in the Finnish front with 4 divisions. We need more divisions. So we're going to take some more of these divisions that are just sitting around here. I'm just going to box select. Now notice we have some boats, some ships parked in Leningrad. If I go and box select over here, by default, it'll only grab land units. If there's any land units in the box, it'll just grab land units. So now that I've got those guys, I can assign them to this army in a few different ways. First, what I can do is I can just go and right click on this army that already exists. Like I can create a new army by clicking here, or I can right click to assign these divisions to that army. Now that I've done that, they will try to assign themselves to any battle plan front there is. So now we have 20 divisions assigned to this battle front. So if I go ahead and unpause again, there we go. They will start to move to get themselves positioned over here. The other thing I can do, let's say I grab some of these guys over here. What I can do is on the front, you can see I can control click to assign the selected units to this order. Or I could control right click to select the units assigned to this order. But in this case, I want to control click. So those units have just been assigned to this order over here. So now we have an army of 27 divisions, all assigned to this Finnish border. And again, if I were to go and just unpause, you can see them start to move over here. So I just paused, unpaused, that's all I'm doing, just to let that go in. We're now 1900 hours on the 2nd of January, and we've got them going over there. Sometimes you see that guy was still moving, even though it was paused. What happens is the animations don't always get played until you move over. It's to remind you that something happened. But it can be confusing. It's like, hey, how's that guy moving if the game is paused? It's just showing you what happened while you were looking away, which is kind of nice. A little confusing, but once you know what it is, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so we have this armed division over here, which is just grand. What else can we do? Well, I mean, we can set up some more borders. Like, we've got Poland over here. So maybe what we'll do is we'll set up a border with Poland. So I'm going to grab the troops that happen to already be around here. That sounds good. I'm going to go and create a new army, and I'm going to assign this front line. Notice that there's a shortcut key for Z. If I just hit Z and then click on the front line, then we've got that set up. So this purplish army will go there. Let's, I called this the Finnish front. I'm going to go and make a new theater over here. And because I had this army selected, it automatically went to new theater. I can move this. I can go in with this army selected. I can right click up here and move them back to that theater. Move them back down here. So we're going to call this something like the Western Front. So we'll have some armies ready to defend against, you know, maybe just be watching Poland, Romania, maybe the Baltics over here, Estonia and Latvia. We'll just have a few token units over there just to hold the front for now, and that's going to be okay. We've got quite a bit more troops to do. As Russia, we've got a lot of territory. So I've got some more guys over here. Let's go and make a new army. So this is a new army, still in the Western Front, and we're going to get them. I'm just going to hit Z as a hotkey. We'll get them positioned on the Turkish border over here. That's fine. Again, the fronts don't really mean anything mechanically. They're just something to see. We've got some more guys way over here in the east. We've actually got some threats from Japan that could certainly start to be a thing. We've got some troops on the Xinjiang border, which is interesting because they'll actually join us. But, I mean, we've got them here for now. So let's go ahead. We're going to box select. I'm going to create a new army. I will move them into a new theater, and we'll call this the Eastern Front. Like that. And, again, I'll hit either Z or the front line button. And, sure, we'll put them on the border with Xinjiang over here. What's gone on over here with this border? How come it's not covering the entire front line with Xinjiang? Well, the reason is there's actually impassable terrain over here. Right over here, this line here, we can't cross. It's because this mountain range is so brutal. We actually can't cross at all over here. So the hatch line doesn't cover that. But what's going on here? Why is it continuing into Mongolian territory? Well, the reason is, if we right-click on Mongolia to open up their diplomatic view, and we'll be talking about this more in the future, Mongolia's actually in the Comintern faction with us. So, in World War II, there were three major factions. There was the Allies, the Axis, and the Comintern, the Communist International. Mongolia is part of our faction. As the Soviet Union, we are the leader of the Comintern. Currently, there are three members. There's us, Mongolia, and Tanu Tuva, and that is all. But as a result of them being in our faction, and you can see here when we're looking at ourselves, it's highlighting Mongolia and Tanu Tuva in blue because of the faction sharing. And we can actually see that for other people as well. Germany's not in any kind of faction. France isn't, although you can see where all of France's territory is, because the Allies haven't been founded or anything like that. Well, the Allies, sorry, have been founded, but France isn't in it. Here, the United Kingdom leads the Allies, but in addition to that, they have Commonwealth countries all over the place. So we've got, you know, part of the Allies and this and that. So you can see the political situation that way. So because they're in our faction, Mongolia is effectively sort of, we have a shared border with them. We can sort of consider them, for border purposes, the same as our country. So these troops will go and position themselves over there. Note, we do have a little tiny gap here in the mountain with Xinjiang that we can run through. What I could do is I could make a different army, but what I'm going to do, in our pink army in the Eastern Front, I'm going to take this mountain division over here. If I were to unpause and pause, see, he's going to try to move to this front, but I'm going to say instead, listen, you. So if we look at this front, this is an army, has 12 people in it. And if we look at this line, somewhere in here, right there, 12 divisions. I'm going to take this mountaineer, and only him. I've only got him selected, right? This is my entire army, but I've only got this one mountain division selected. I'm going to go and click front line right there. And what's going to happen... Okay, he's still moving in his own location. I'm going to tell him to stop. So there's a couple of different ways I can do this. There's a hotkey for stopping, which is H. You can just tell him to stop, or you can just right-click over here. If I unpause now... Oh no! Ah, I made the new front, but you see it says no divisions. This guy is still assigned to his old front over here. So I need to tell him... So we made a new front for the pink army, but no divisions are assigned to it. Him, I'm going to go and control-click this front. So there we go. Now, one division over here, and it should say 11 divisions over here. So purple army is working two different fronts, or pink army is working two different fronts, which is fine. We've got an Alpine division, right? Some mountaineers over here. They're going to hold this mountain point. Looking great. Awesome. Lovely. We can do a little bit more of that. We're going to get some troops over here. I'm going to make a new army. I'm going to tell you to hold the Mongolian border. And you see the Mongolian border actually goes all the way to the Japanese border over here because Mongolia is a puppet, I believe, of Japan. Yeah, they're a puppet of Japan. I'm hitting escape to close these windows, by the way. So we've got that. So some of these troops didn't get assigned to this new purple army in the Eastern Front. So right over here, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to control-click to add them in there. Excellent. Now I still have some unassigned divisions. If I click on this, it'll go and cycle between the unassigned ones. I can also shift-click to select all the unassigned ones. But we're gonna hold off on that for now. What are we gonna do? Well, we've got a bunch of troops over here that you can see they don't have like a This has got a purple thing because they're in a purple army. These guys have no thing because they're no army. I'll grab these guys, make a new army group. I don't want them in the Eastern Front. I'm going to move them to the Western Front, and I'm going to assign them to the Romanian border. Now, these two armies are technically different colors, but they're pretty darn similar, right? This yellow and this sort of like rust color, they're too close to each other, and it makes it hard to tell the difference. So let's take this rust-colored army and change its color. If we go over here to, we selected the army by clicking on it, right? So this is Army 6, which we can rename, right? This is the Romanian Army. Oops. There we go. So, it's the army that's assigned to the Romanian front over here as part of the Western Front theater. You see this little thingy over here? We can expand this and change our color. Let's make this one green. We can actually choose any color we would like. All right, we've got a little hue slider over here, and we've got, hue, saturation, value, blah, 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 those things. So, ooh, nice deep blue. I like it. We can even change the symbol if we'd like. We can go ahead and give them the pitchfork symbol if we'd want, or the nut over here. But, I don't know, we'll just use the shield. That's going to be fine. So you can color code and you can change the insignia of your armies. For example, if you have a group of people who are dedicated, like all Marines, you could use the anchor or something like that. So this has no effect in game, other than making it a lot easier for you to keep track of what's going on. So we still have lots of troops to assign. Let's go ahead and get you guys, new army. We're going to get you on Latvia, and then these guys are all assigned and moving. You guys aren't assigned to anything. We'll go ahead and make another army over here and assign you to the Estonian front. Now, we still have tons of troops that haven't been assigned yet. What are we going to do with them? Well, what I could do is we just add them to an extra army. All right, let's say, so out of these guys, I've got 35 divisions selected. I'm going to go and select half, and then half again. And I'm going to go and assign a few more of you to Latvia. And then I'm going to shift-click there to select everyone again. So I have 26 divisions. I'm going to go and select half of you, so that's 13. I'm going to control-click and add you to the Polish front. That seems okay. And then we have a handful more in here. Well, we might want some to keep an eye on the insides of our territory. What if Poland develops paratroopers, right? So they can drop from airplanes. And what if they suddenly dropped on top of Moscow, took our capital because all of our troops are on the front? That sounds bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to make yet another army on the so-called, well, we'll make a new theater. We'll call these like home defense. How about home defense? I like it. Home defense. And we're going to look at another one of these buttons. So we're going to come all the way over here, not to a fallback line. Although let's talk about the fallback line. Fallback line, you can pick it, right-click and drag, and make a line anywhere, sort of like a border. And if we unpause, our troops that we have selected here will go and line themselves up along this line. So there's lots of times you might use this for various things, and sometimes you can play entire games with. Quite often, a lot of people play without ever using the fallback line, but it's interesting to be able to make an arbitrary border somewhere. You might want, in preparation, like, if Germany comes here and they start pushing, we know we're sort of going to get our butt kicked on this border, but maybe we want to preemptively draw a fallback line along this river here. Because rivers are good defense. Attacking across river is hard, so if we hide behind the river, then Germany will have a much harder time pushing us back. I'm going to right-click on the delete orders to delete all orders for this army. Now, they still have their old movement command, but no orders. We can just tell them, listen, just halt, which is what that button is there, or H. Tell them to stop, and that's okay. We're going to use this button instead, Garrison Area. So what's cool about this is you click this, and then you just start clicking states. And what's going to happen is your troops are going to try to spread themselves out in these states. And when you have the garrison order button selected, you actually get a pop-up window telling you, like, allowing you to choose, hey, where should you garrison? It also tells you how many divisions you'd need to fully garrison this. We're going to say, listen, just guard our victory point locations. So this would just be our cities. Okay, we could do cities and airports, but we'll do that because there's no navy. None of these are doing anything. Lower resistance. If we've taken over territory and there might be some resistance elements, we could do that. But hey, that sounds pretty good. Guard victory points. We need 14. We only have 13. We might steal a unit from somewhere to make it exactly that. But now if I unpause this purple army, there we go. They're spreading themselves out all over here where I told them to garrison. So we'll have someone sitting in Moscow, someone sitting in Kalinin, someone sitting in Rzev. I don't know how to pronounce any of this. Yaroslav. All those places, just to guard against paratroopers. Hey, that's pretty cool. It's really handy to guard coastlines, right? Let's say we took some of these teal people, and made a new army composition over here and garrisoned areas. And all we did is we sort of clicked all the states along the coast here. And we just said, listen, the only thing I want you to do is make sure you guard the ports. Okay, so we have minimum decision is 3. We have 3 ports in there. I mean, if we have more than the minimum, then they'll double up in locations, which is okay. But that's all right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these tanks out of here. By double-clicking on this, it selects everyone of the same type. So these tanks, we're going to take them out of the garrison. I'm going to move them back over to the Finnish front. There you go. Because, I mean, using tanks to defend ports is kind of wasteful. Tanks are good at attacking. We'll talk about some of the combat stats when we look at, again, our division composition and what all these stats mean. But tanks are good at attacking. That is their specialty. I mean, they can defend okay, I guess, but that's not really what they're meant for. Whereas infantry often has better defense, actually. Okay, so we no longer have a warning that our troops are not properly deployed. I mean, or not assigned to anything. This doesn't mean they're properly deployed, but they're at least assigned to something. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here with our army organization is, now that we've got people deployed on the front line, what do we do with them? If a war were to break out, how would we attack? What we do? Well, what you can always do is you can always grab some troops and then right-click on a target. I can't right now because these guys, we're not at war with Poland. But if we were, and I grabbed these guys and right-clicked over here, my troops would start to move into this province and would, because there's someone there, they would immediately start fighting. As soon as you start moving into a province where there's someone contesting it, there's going to be a fight that breaks out. But, you know, we've got so many troops all over. We don't want to tell every single unit what they're supposed to do. My God, that would be time consuming. Although often very, like, optimal, but it's too much. So even if you're okay with doing a bunch of micromanagement, you're still going to want a fair amount of automation. And how can you do that? Well, that's where battle plans come in. So let's say, for example, we were planning on maybe attacking Poland. So our little purple army over here, which is the Poland front. So this is Army 2 in the Western Front, is on the border with Poland. And we're going to say, listen, if war breaks out with Poland, we want you to run in there and try to take as much territory as you can. So we have our button here for front line. Right next to it, we have a button for offensive line. If we click on that, what we can do is we can right-click and drag an offensive line. So let's say we're going to do something like this. I'm going to do an offensive line that will bring us all the way through Warsaw and into Krakow over here, and try to take a good number of things along the way. And this would be our battle plan. We can mouse over and it'll show us what provinces we would likely take in order. Depending on how the defenders are, or what the defenders are doing, we may or may not actually take the provinces in this order, but this is this battle plan. It can also be a multi-step plan. We can say, listen, after you've pushed this far over here, if they still haven't capitulated, we're just going to keep pushing until we hit the end of the country. You know, something like this over here. So you can see we've got arrows that go there, and then a secondary battle plan that goes this way after the first one, and it would be executed in order. Each one of your armies has a little play button over here. This is to activate the battle plan. Right now, even though we've drawn this battle plan, if a war were to break out, our purple guys here would not move. They would hold the line, perfectly fine, they'd dig in, they'd be okay, but until we hit play, by doing that, now you can see this arrow's animated. Now, if we were at war, we're not at war, so we can't actually attack, but the second war starts, all of our troops would attempt to move forward. Now, that's what this arrow button over here is. This is the execution of your battle plan. Balanced is going to be fine most of the time. They will not attack areas that are super well defended, but they will attack vulnerable areas. You can tell them to be more careful. They're only going to attack where they have a huge advantage, or you could tell them to be more aggressive. They will attack even if they don't have overwhelming odds, but just try to push. This could be, you know, this can cost you a lot of manpower and a lot of material if it's not going to go well, but at the same time, it can be used to sometimes radically overwhelm people. So even if you have a battle plan, there's nothing that says you can't still manually take people and give them manual orders. Anyone who you're not actively controlling will just do their own thing, but you can always just grab some people and click and tell them to do something. And then once they're done doing the things you told them, like let's say I do this. So I'm going to tell everyone to come back here. They're going to do this. And then once they're done, once they've executed this move, see the tanks move faster than the infantry. Once they're done that, then they're going to return to the battle plan. They'll return to the front line somewhere, and as you move people around, other units will try to shuffle around to fill gaps. By default, yeah, they'll just try to fill the gaps to start off with, and then they'll build up in areas that make the most sense the AI will try to do as good as it possibly can by following these. And there's so much going on, especially here. We're going to be fighting in the west. We're going to be fighting in the east. You need your troops to be doing their own thing. Now, one of the things that's great is once you've got a battle plan started, we've got a bunch of little information in this army screen. Right, we've got the picture for the template that we're using, so infantry, cavalry. These guys here are probably a different infantry that's more lightweight, they're lower priority. If we mouse over on these guys, it says it's 9 infantry battalions, whereas if we go over here, it's 6 infantry battalions with the military police support. We'll look at how we design that. Again, that's this screen here that I keep teasing. We'll look at that in the next episode. Right, so we look at the army screen, we've got that. We've got their experience that we talked about, and there's a few little bars, right? We've got the yellow bar here is their experience bar, and then the blue bar over here, this is their planning preparation. Once you've given someone a battle plan, so you've got them on a front line and you've got an offensive line, they will start to build up a planning bonus. The planning bonus is a bonus to attacking. It takes a few days to power up. You can see here we're at 8%. We're getting 2% every day to a maximum of 30%. So we can get an extra 30% to our attacks if we let our plan get completely drawn out, right? The generals and the commanders and whatnot, they're getting together, they're charting things out, they're making sure that the plans get sent out to all the units get trained to say, okay, when you hear the whistle, you're going to run this way and do that and do all those things. If we let that go all the way up to the max of 30%, we will attack with 30% more potency. Very good. There's a bunch of different ways that you can increase the maximum bonus up to 40 or 50%, or all kinds of different numbers to get a huge boost to your attack. You can also improve the speed at which your preparation starts to build up, which is very handy. So we have the 2% as a base, and we have no bonuses to that. Well, 30% is the base maximum, and 2% per day is the base per day. We have no bonuses or penalties affecting that at this current time. So we've got that. We got another symbol here. This is the, we've got the little acclimatization here. As troops spend time in cold or hot areas, they get acclimated to it, they get more used to it, so they don't suffer as many penalties. Normally, troops fighting in really cold weather or really hot weather will get various penalties, but if the troops get used to it, then they don't get that penalty as much. Then we've got entrenchment over here, which is what this blue line here is. Entrenchment is how much you've dug in as a defensive position. This is a bonus to your defense, and the longer units sit in a province, the more entrenched they get. So if units are allowed to sort of sit in a province for a little while before an attack starts, they'll be better at defending it. The maximum defense bonus is, and how quickly it accrues to the maximum depends on a variety of different things, your doctrines, your attack, your political people, and so on and so forth. But here you can see this unit would get a 10% boost to its defense because it's just dug into some trenches. It's covered everything up with camouflage and other types of effects like that. Then we've got the name of the army and the symbol over here. So we've got all that. At the top here, there's some interesting things. This is how many units are currently selected, how many divisions are selected in this army, right? Select a few more, hold shift to just select some dudes at random, right? Select these guys, we've got 7 selected, perfectly fine. Total weight of the divisions, which is used for transporting them overseas through different deans and whatnot. You get a breakdown of what's in here. We've got 17 of the infantry divisions, 6 of the cavalry divisions, and so on and so forth. Notice it says no commander over here. We've got all these grayed out portraits. You can assign a commander to an army, and in fact, any army that's going to do any kind of fighting, you want it to have a commander, because commanders provide an army with a tremendous amount of bonuses. So if we click here on the portrait, we can assign a commander, and then we've got a list of different commanders available. There's 2 classes of commanders. There's field marshals and generals. Generals are basically what you assign to an army, which is what we're doing here. So General Zhukov over here, he's a level 5 commander. He's going to give us a substantial boost to the strength of our troops. Level 5 is really good. They have different areas that they can concede in, so we've got skill 5 in attack, skill 2 in defense, skill 4 in planning, skill 5 in supply consumption bonuses. He's also got some extra traits. He's a war hero, he's a media personality, he's an armor officer, he's quite good for leading panzers, and he's a winter specialist. So we might want to have specialized, say, tank divisions and make sure we have an appropriate commander on those. Notice commanders also have a capacity. It's generally 24. Some commanders can have a modifier for that. But let's assign General Zhukov to this army. So now he's giving a huge number of bonuses to this army. However, you'll see we've got some numbers that have gone in red. 30 of 24, 30 of 24. General Zhukov can only manage 24 divisions effectively. If you go above that, his bonuses will be cut down. So you're wasting a bunch of his bonus by being over the limit. Sometimes it's fine to do it, and sometimes it's kind of crummy. So we have too many troops here. 24 is sort of the maximum that we can practically do with one general. So what are we going to do about that? Well, we need to move 6 dudes out of here. But let's say, no, I really want 30 guys in this front. What's the solution? I'll tell you what. This purple army, with it selected, I'm going to hold Alt. And what I can do is I can right-click and drag this battle line, and I'm going to shorten it over here. I'm going to shorten it to about ballpark half-ish of Poland. Okay? And then if I unpause, all the purple fellas are going to go ahead and they're going to reorganize themselves. Oh, if I actually select them, you can see here they're going to reassign themselves on this line. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and select half the current division. So I have 30 divisions selected. I'm going to select half of them, that's 15. And I'm going to make a new army with those 15. So this is a bluish army. And I'm going to assign a new front line. And I'm going to use right-click and drag to draw a second front line on Poland's front for this army. 15 divisions assigned there. And if I unpause, there we go. So these guys are actually going to go here. So we're going to have 2 separate armies getting ready to attack Poland. So this army will also need a battle plan. So we'll say, listen, you're responsible, offensive line, for pushing up to maybe this river over here. So we're going to have one army attack from the south along here, one army attack from the north. And maybe what I'll do for the northern army over here is I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to shorten its battle line to sort of more explicitly just focus on the north part of Poland. That looks pretty good. We could reorganize what our troops are and whatnot, but we've got that. So this guy would probably also want some sort of commander. We'll put Ivan Konev in charge of that. Great. Now you'll notice there's still, okay, this button here is to make new armies. What is this button we've ignored? This is to create a new army group. With an army selected, if you go and right click, or click, either way, we can make a new army group. See, it's got a little bit of a border around it here. Let's take this guy and throw him into an army group as well. Sorry, I just put him into a new army group, which isn't what I meant to do. What I want to do is add him to the existing group. So now, both of our armies here are part of the same army group. An army group can be led by a field marshal, not a general, only a field marshal. We're going to click here. You can see our field marshals are here. All of our generals are grayed out. If you want, you can promote a general to be a field marshal. It'll give you a warning, you'll lose some of your skills and things like that while people are being reshuffled around, but it's going to be okay. It also costs us command points to promote a leader. It also costs us command points to make new commanders. But as the Soviet Union here, we have tons. Oh, and by the way, the points to make a commander is based on how many commanders you've got. So if you're a country with like 0 commanders, it'll be really cheap to start producing them. So we'll grab Mikhail Tukhachevsky over here. He's a 4-skill field marshal, and he's got a variety of different traits. Brilliant strategist, so he's got bonuses to attack and planning. Career officer, reckless, infantry officer. Hey, these are all fine, sure. We'll grab you. Field marshals generally have a capacity of 5 armies. So if we select you, you can see we've got a capacity of 2 of 5 armies. So these extra armies here, we're going to assign these armies over to him until we get to a number of 5. And so, generally speaking, you want to do this because now this field marshal is giving his bonus to all 5 of these armies. And these armies still need some generals, so we'll go ahead and just assign these. And again, usually you try to pair up the generals with what they're supposed to do. For example, Zhukov is a panzer expert, so maybe what we'd want to do is go shopping around for all of our tanks that we've got sitting here. And so we got a tank here. Let's grab you. We're going to attach you. Is this Zhukov? Which one of these Zhukov? Yeah, the purple guy. No there, here. We're going to go and right-click on Zhukov. What about you? You don't have any tanks. You don't either. You don't either. We really have very few tanks. There might be some in one of our other fronts. But yeah, we could make sure, Zhukov might just lead an army of only tanks, for example. And we'll see. And then units will shuffle around. We've got battle plans. That is great and grand and lovely. So there you go. You can assign frontline troops. Frontline troops probably want a battle plan. Even if you're not at war with anyone, set up the battle plan, then your planning bonus can start to accrue, and that's okay. You can stop the plan from executing. So right now, the units would just sit around, not advance, or you can hit play. and then they would advance. Again, they won't actually advance until the war starts. So these guys too, there we go. So now if a war with Poland starts, we'll go ahead and both these armies will try to advance forward. That's going to be good. Again, we'll look at these invasion orders later on. So front line and offensive line, these go together. Over here, we've got the fallback line, just a line in the middle of nowhere. You won't use this very often, but it's kind of cool. Garrison is really handy because troops will go and guard points of interest. As you take over territory, having the garrisons go and do the rebellion suppression over here is really nice because rebels will show up, they'll blow up your factories and whatever, so you're going to want troops there to babysit them and all that kind of jazz. Right, so what we could do is this army here isn't an army group. I could assign him this army group and then he'd be at 6 of 5. So instead we might want to make a separate army group for him. And you can see it getting organized here. The Western Front has 2 different army groups. Army groups have different number of people in them. You can click on things and select them and do all kinds of different organization as you would like. And, you know, if you've got enough field marshals, you want everyone to be in army groups if you can. In practice, it might not be possible for everyone to be in army groups, depending on how you're organized and whatever. But there we go. So the next episode, we are certainly going to be looking at these division templates because this is a very, very important concept because this is how you actually will determine what's in your divisions. So this division here has got 9 battalions of infantry plus a support company of artillery. What does that mean? How do you work it? What do these numbers mean? And how do you optimize things? So that'll be next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.